it's just Ryan Poles constantly preaches value. Value-wise, is it worth it? So you mentioned Brandon Marshall. Brandon Marshall was a 4th-round pick. If we go through and just take top 5 wide receivers drafted in the past, we have A.J. Green, who did not win a Super Bowl. Calvin Johnson, who did not win a Super Bowl. Braylon Edwards did not win a Super Bowl. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going off memory here. Larry Fitz was in a Super Bowl but didn't win one. Charles Rogers did not win a Super Bowl. Andre Johnson did not win a Super Bowl. Peter Warrick did not win a Super Bowl. You got to go all the way back to 1996, where Keyshawn Johnson was taken at number 1 overall, and he was taken by the Jets. He definitely didn't win one with them, right? The history shows us that a top 5 wide receiver doesn't necessarily make the impact that, for example, a top 5 quarterback could make. Everybody's just giving it their best shot. Nobody really truly knows what players are going to become at the end of the day, right? My mindset is always that this thing's a crapshoot. Give me more darts to throw at the dartboard. You know, the more draft picks I could accumulate, I feel the safer the future is. And, you know, the more you can do with it overall. But hey, you never know. You really, truly never know. This is in no specific order whatsoever. I'm sure I left some guys out here and there, but I just, took a good handful of guys and kind of put it together. So we got Nick Bosa, Michael Parsons, Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, Max Crosby, Brian Burns. And I even added Montez Sweat in there. And as you can see, these guys, a lot of them were 1st-round talent guys, right? So that's defensive end. And when we look at defensive tackles, we kind of see the same thing going on, right? So I just, once again, a handful of guys, no specific order. We got Aaron Donald, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence. We got Williams, Cameron Hayward, DeForest Buckner, Jonathan Allen. I'm not trying to knock on Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't draft Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm just kind of trying to lay out some of these tendencies out there and whatnot. And when we do take a look at the wide receivers, right, and I took a good handful of them, Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, A.J. Brown, C.D. Lamb, DJ Moore, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Jamar Chase. And here we see a lot of fluctuation, right? A lot of these drafts are stacked pretty deep with wide receivers. So you can find guys like Tyreek Hill in the 5th round. I mean, just coming to mind, Antonio Brown was a 5th-round pick as well. So you have more of a chance of drafting a position like this later in the round and having it succeed than, for example, let me bring this back up. For example, like a defensive end.
In terms of positional value, and we had this conversation with Jacob Infante about positional value. I love that conversation, like positional need and all that good stuff. In my mind, I played it out, right? And Paulie, you said this, like, you're drafting for a wide receiver 3, right? Yes, granted, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen might get hurt. Rome Odunze turns into wide receiver 2 for a good chunk of the season. That's all hypothetical, and let's say it's a perfect world, right? Let's say you play out this offseason, and you come out of this draft with Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, and now training camp's coming up, and we're talking about, can we get Yannick Ngakoue back for a cheaper contract, right? Can we address the defensive end position and yada, yada, yada? How do we add depth to defensive tackle? This, that, and the other. And I feel like that route, while it's fun because it's offense, there's a lot of question marks. It's a rookie quarterback with a rookie wide receiver and 2 veteran wide receivers. And yeah, like, you can only spread the ball around so much. So let's say in a perfect world, you have Rome Odunze with Caleb Williams and he's playing great. Rome Odunze is getting you 700 yards maybe and like 5 to 7 touchdowns.
Can I intervene real quick?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm so far on one end of this whole thing where if Marvin Harrison Jr. falls to 9, I would be so happy because it guarantees me a trade partner.
Yeah. Same.
That's how I feel about the wide receiver position. And I know, Richie, you were laughing at probably the idea. I would pass him up.
The other part of this is, if Caleb Williams is everything you hope he is, we're talking about, like, you want to compare to Aaron Rodgers, this is a guy that made Randall Cobb like a Pro Bowler. So Julian Edelman was on his podcast talking about how Tom Brady, he would invite him to workouts, and on a normal day with wide receiver training in the summer, they ask you to run routes, route trees, fix each other's like body positioning and stuff like that. Quarterback invites you, they ask you to run 25, 30 routes, right? Like, that's a heavy work day, right? You're running 25 hard full speed routes. Julian Edelman mentioned that I think he said Tom Brady had him run 75 to 90 routes, right? And the whole time Tom Brady is saying, look, when I throw the ball, I expect you to put all your weight on the inside foot leverage, peel back and hit the sideline. And Julian Edelman just constantly kept talking about how Tom Brady, a quarterback, was probably the person that made him better at wide receiver than his wide receivers coach, his head coach, his coaches all the way through, right? When a quarterback can dictate what they want you to do, you become more successful. And that's why I was never in the favor of the Justin Fields narrative. Like, he just needs 3 number 1 wide receivers and he's going to be a stud. Like, that's a problem.
Where was Julian Edelman? Exactly it.
You're spending your 1-1 at quarterback. Ideally, the risk has already been taken. You don't need to pad that room with guys to make Caleb Williams that much better. You already gave him DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. You're talking about you're playing the hypothetical offseason game. You come out of the draft with Rome Odunze and Caleb Williams, and you're just fingers crossed that everybody's gelling, has chemistry, and now you're hoping that you can fill some positions of need on defense, right? So you're saying Rome Odunze in a perfect world with everybody healthy and Caleb Williams being a 4,000-yard passer. Rome Odunze is coming out of the season with maybe 700 yards and 5 touchdowns, and he's probably in the Rookie of the Year competition. Flip that over, and now you have Caleb Williams. Now you take Jared Verse, right? In an ideal scenario, Jared Verse on this defense, and part of this is also, I don't think defense is the most inconsistent part of football. You can have a top 5 defense one year and a 15th ranked defense the next year and nothing changed, right? So you can't rest on your laurels because the last 6-7 games of the year, you were a top 5 defense. You still have to improve defense because that stuff is always changing. Somebody gets a step slower, somebody messes up their gapping position, somebody's coach that they liked and was the secret sauce just left. And so now you got Jared Verse. A good year for Jared Verse opposite a good, like a Jervon Dexter year that's up, a Montez Sweat year. Jared Verse should end with like 9 sacks, 10 sacks, 11 sacks.
Yeah.
Right? So I'd rather have Caleb Williams, 11 sacks from Jared Verse, and go get Tyler Boyd or Hunter Renfrow in training camp. Or wait for a training camp wide receiver cut. Somebody's getting cut in training camp this year that you don't expect. Somebody's going to be a cap casualty that you still don't expect. We just got Stephon Diggs traded for a essentially second or mid-third round pick 21 days before the draft. You don't see defensive ends getting traded today.
Rome was not worth 10.
To take that position that high, to me, is just the wrong move. It's nothing against Rome.
The top 5 or top 10 defensive tackle, he'll probably get a second contract and stay on the team with Caleb Williams, rather than if you take a guy to support Caleb Williams, you're going to still keep Caleb. He's going to look good, but Caleb's going to make anybody look good, ideally. So if you, in this one draft at 1 and 9, make your quarterback play and your pass rush better, it's the greatest thing you can do.
First Turner Murphy.
Verse Turner Murphy?
Murphy.
If it's fucking Rome Odunze,
I would pass him up. I would definitely pass him up.
you can't pay DJ Moore and Rome Odunze at the same time.
End of the first round? Hell yeah. Take a wide receiver. Sure. But not top 10. Top 10, I want a pass rush. And if you would have done that, then there would be a spot for DJ Moore. You wouldn't be talking about potentially trading him because you would still need him. And you could probably get good or more production from Luther Burden this year.
Comment on Carl's comment. He's buried under 2 wide receivers. I would have loved for him not to be buried under a second wide receiver that you are forced to play all the time as your number 1
Kind of
because
the
you
point.
drafted top 10. That's the point. I would love to have Jared Verse next to Montez Sweat and DJ Moore and Luther Burden be your starting wide receivers. That is the point. Your team is better that way.
And now people are getting
so,
offended about DJ Moore trade talk. And it's like, well, no, the situation calls for it.
And I'm okay with it. Here's the other part, Paulie, which we've gently touched on. You got better quicker than you thought. And the unfortunate part is now you're going to draft a defensive end, which you desperately need in the mid-20s.
Yeah, which
is just
where you
not a
want it.
good place where you get defensive ends. Could
Exactly.
you get a starting wide receiver mid-20s? Absolutely. Name a position other than defensive tackle and defensive end. You don't get those in the mid-20s.
Or left tackle.
Yeah, or left tackle.